We're live. Cafe Mock episode 1.
Uno. How do you say one in Portuguese?
Okay.
Pretty proud to be a part of the first episode.
First episode.
Special.
I mean, you know,
all the people you guys chose me, like, I'm so honored.
Venice, LA local.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is where this thing started.
and you like coffee. We're not drinking coffee tonight. I'm drinking a little bit of white wine. A little, little
this is
shard.
a cafe. We can drink whatever. It's with drinks.
Exactly.
And we're live streaming, so I think we can see if people have questions and stuff during the show. We can just respond.
We could maybe get some questions in at the end.
Yeah, or just, I don't know.
Well, so for the people that don't know us, my name is Chris Wareheim. I former racer myself, professional racer in sports car racing, now turned coach. TJ?
Yeah, so I have a background in motorsports as well. I just got done racing in Pro Mazda this year. And started in go-karts, worked my way up, came across these guys a little bit in karting. And we got Gustavo on as well for a show.
Yeah, I feel like I'm with two guys that are actually pretty decent in the car myself that's bumped my head a few too many times. Somehow it worked along the way, so I'm pretty happy to be here.
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. As TJ came along and you, it's always kind of the same system. Everyone comes through karting in the early phases, and I made my way into the junior Formula car ranks, about 6 years ago, age 16. Slowly worked my way up, and, you have very tough times. It's never easy to make it to the top, but still trying to get that all together. I moved back to Europe when I was 18 years old, went into Formula 3. And on my third year and second year in the European Championship, we decided to make a move into sports car racing, into endurance racing. And I got my first shot in a prototype in LMP2. And 1 year later, I was testing an LMP1 car, world champion and Le Mans winner. So it's been very special to me. And now we're just enjoying the ride.
That's badass.
That is.
World champion thing.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like the main topic that we kind of want to talk about is, you coming out of karting. I've known you since you were maybe 8 years old, maybe even younger.
I was fat, annoying, and hyper as heck.
Yeah, at least you know.
I'm not going to be shy about that one.
But the one thing I think everyone could never deny was the talent that you had. And, you definitely went that Formula One route. And, we've had coffee and lunch a bunch over the last few years. And you have a pretty honest take and understanding that I found pretty interesting and also humbling of you on this route of Formula One's it. That's the way I'm going. And then all of a sudden, boom, a major switch in kind of your mindset and career. So maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about that just to start off with.
Yeah, obviously, as you know, I started at a very young age, and with this focus of Formula One, that's life. I mean, my family is from Brazil, so we have that strong culture of Senna, Formula One, that's everything. I'm going to be the next Senna, and slowly reality changes. I went and pursued my dreams. I went to Europe with the support of my family, obviously, which without them, I would not be here today. I'm very blessed and fortunate. And, the racing world isn't easy. So we pushed through as hard as we could. I raced karts in Europe and the European scene. And in Formula 3, I checked every box that I could on my way to the top. We had rough times and we had great times. Race wins in Formula 3 was, something that's not easy to achieve. But we got to a point that at the same time, I started to realize I have to be realistic, and dreams are dreams and goals are goals. I mean, I want to be a professional race car driver and enjoy my life and be happy. And I wasn't very happy anymore because I was getting to a point that you have so much doubt filling you because you don't know if you're going to make it another year. You're chasing funding, which is very hard. And if you're not producing perfect results, which, I mean, there's only one winner. So,
right.
So it's not that easy to be champion and to be the best. And of course, there's people that are doing that, and great for them. But that wasn't the case for me. I was doing good. I was quick. I was strong. But I wasn't able to prove my absolute talent in what I was doing. I was always in the top 10. Sometimes I'd have a podium, and it was great, but it wasn't Formula One at the time. I mean, when you're looking and, you go sit with the Formula One teams and they go irrelevant if you're a champion or not. You need 15 million euros.
Right.
I looked and said, okay, well, I'm going to be realistic about this. I'm going to need to go find $2.5 million to race in Formula 2, which, let's be fair, no one cares about.
Right.
As a sponsor, as a corporation, I was being honest to myself and saying this isn't realistic. And even if I do find someone with $2.5 million to give me for the next 2 years or 5 million, I'm gonna have to look at that same person and say, "So do you have 15 so we can go play in Formula One for 1 year?"
Right.
It wasn't something that, in my case, was possible. And some people do have the means through their family or through sponsors, and great for them. You see people making it to Formula One, and I'm very happy for them. But for me, this opportunity presented itself to have a test in sports cars and a prototype, and I was really lost. I got offered to go to rallycross. It's another thing that's blooming slowly in the world.
I remember when you did that test.
Yeah, I did that test with Red Bull. I was very fortunate that they approached me because I was a Red Bull junior when I was a younger kid. And I tried the car. I had fun. And then a week later, I tested a prototype. And I said, oh, my God, this is something that I can do. I'm happy with this. I'm happy to settle with this. And I haven't looked back since.
That's incredible. So when you initially made that switch to prototype racing, you went straight into LMP2, right?
Yes.
And was last year your first year in LMP2, full season?
Yes. So at the end of 2015, after I finished my last race in Macau in Formula 3, I took a red-eye straight to Bahrain and did the rookie test.
Right.
And had a good performance, and it opened up the opportunity to compete with a team that, had a very big history in the endurance scene. That was Alpine. Big presence in France, big manufacturer there, and I'd say big historic
right
car company. And we came in, I was a silver, but I had quite a lot of background in Formula 3. Still had a lot to learn in the endurance scene. And everything clicked so quick. I was driving with the driver, Nico Lapierre and Stefan Rakelmi last year. Nico having a background of fighting for a world championship with Toyota and LMP1. It was the perfect guy to learn from and to grow. And we went out and, the first race, I remember we had some issues and we finished fourth. And I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be a lot harder than it looked, because we were first in every test. And I was like, this is going to be a walk in the park.
Right.
Reality hit. It's a world championship. It's never going to be a walk in the park.
Never.
But once we got everything clicked, we won 3 races in a row. Went on to podium in Mexico, win in Austin again. We won them all, which was incredible. We lapped the field. That's not something that's easy to do in the hardest race in the world. It's my first try. We got there. Everything worked perfectly, and became a world champion on first American in 35 years. I think it was.
Yeah.
So that was crazy, and it presented opportunities to continue on this path. That it was something that for myself it finally proved. For any junior driver, as you know, it's always about proving yourself, and even if you're winning on 1 year, you're gonna have lows, and it's knowing you're actually good enough to be a professional driver, to get paid, to do what you love. It's not easy to break through. And when I stood at the top of the podium at Le Mans, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can keep doing this. And it's not easy, because at that point the pressure comes on as well. As much as there's relief, that you have to continue to perform. You have to show that it wasn't a fluke, and I've continued to do that. And now we're on year 2, and soon coming on year 3, and it's continuing to go well.
Yeah, so you have what? One more major, two more races left this year. Still a shot at the World Championship, right?
Yeah, I have Shanghai coming up this weekend. I just arrived from the last race actually 4 days ago, and I leave to China tomorrow. So constantly on the road, but very good. We're currently 3rd in the World Championship, but quite close to the leaders. And we're not going to stop fighting to the end. We were 67 points behind, and to you guys that don't know, that's 25 points per race win. So you can imagine how far behind we were.
Right.
We were not even in an achievable position, and over the last 4 races, we've had 4 podiums in the row, and we've just dug back the gap. We've had a race when we dominated in Austin to the point, we pretty much left the field again. So it's 2 in the row for me there at home. And now we have 2 races to go to close this gap down. So we're going to do our best.
Dang. So my question is, you go from basically karting Formula cars where, that it's basically sprint racing. It's like you're racing, 30 minutes, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
It's nothing. And then you go into a 24-hour format or 12-hour format or even 6 hours, whatever it is. How do you, as a guy, literally that's how you made your way in racing. How do you go from that to 24 hours? How does that even work with a mindset thing?
Yeah, it's very funny. The mentality of the sport changes. You mature in different ways. Obviously, coming from karting, it's all sprint racing. Going into Formula cars, something like Formula 3, where the tires lasted the whole race. You didn't have to worry about tire degradation. You just pushed as hard as you physically could. going into races that you're doing 1.5 hour, 2 hour stints, managing tires. But at the same time, the crazy thing about racing these days is the cars are so reliable, the grip of the tires, everything is so good that it's actually a 24-hour sprint race. You know, you're at it full wood the whole time. So the pressure is on, but at the same time, the big thing to learn is, one, physically doing it. You know, I mean, this year at Le Mans, I drove over 10 hours. Dang. So it's a long time. I was in the car for 6 stints in the night in a row. It's managing the concentration, the endurance. So the training changes a bit. Nothing's high intensity, but just long hours.
Really?
And the mental side is just knowing when to take risk, right? Because if you drove like a sprint race for 10 hours, it's so easy to make one mistake that can finish the race. So it's about calculating every move, thinking, is it worth it right now?
Right.
You know? So it's just changing your strategy a bit, but at the same time, it's still racing. You're still pushing. You're still having fun. And I mean, when you're in a good car, being in the car for 24 hours is wonderful. When you're in a bad car, it's a long ride.
Oh my God, yeah. And I bet like you can't really do much to the car, right? Like once you have a setup, like not much.
There's very little you can do. Of course, changing on the outside, there's nothing. Once you have the race setup going, you're good. There's a few things you can change in the car with throttle maps, traction control maps,
right?
Basic things like that, but nothing too serious. So you just have to manipulate your driving style and adapt your driving to what the car has given you during the race.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, I mean, if you're at like hour 15 and like a gap presents itself, but it's like, man, that's a tough call.
It's funny. Last year, I remember first year at Le Mans, I'm all excited. We're 2 minutes, 40 seconds into the lead, and it was about 4 a.m, pitch dark. And I came out the pits on hot tires, like on it. And I went 4 wide into the chicane, like third lap or something. And the team just came on the radio and goes, "What are you doing?" Like, it's just like, why are you taking these risks? Slow down. And, at the time I was doing purple sectors, I was just like, I felt so good. We're 2 minutes, 40 seconds in the lead with an incredible car. I want to go fast. But then it's not about slowing down, but it's about just being in your zone. But when you're in the car for long periods of time and you're in this rhythm, at some points you start to slip up a bit and take too much risk. And so obviously with experience comes the patience. For a lot of people as well, another option, the team does let us know when to tune down, but now obviously after a year you kind of start to put it together.
Yeah, and I think what do you do for like mental, like if you're in the car for that long, how do you train for that? How do you train like mentally to be concentrated?
To be fair, a lot of it just comes with the situation you get put in and you deal with it, staying calm. For me, training, one thing I've always enjoyed is cycling. Most drivers do. But, sometimes getting out on a bike for long hours, it just teaches you that endurance aspect of having your heart rate at a tempo kind of threshold at 160 beats and just keeping yourself calm. Another thing, just being in the car. Before Le Mans, we have several races that you're in the car for double stints and triple stints, and you're already kind of learning that patience of just getting in that rhythm and dealing with it corner by corner, lap by lap. And at some point, you just start to enjoy it and take it all in.
Right. Yeah, it's a big, and I think the buzzing sound, I think it's just the noise floor of the thing, unless it's like really intrusive. But hopefully,
we will find out later.
We're gonna find out.
This is our first live show using a new camera rig.
If you put the iRig 2 like off of the iPad, I don't know if it's on it, but that might be why. Okay.
Well, I hope that the buzz is about us talking and not about the buzzing noise.
There's a lot of buzz about this.
There is a lot of buzz. All our 5 followers so far.
Oh, yeah?
No, we have a little bit more than that. But no, I mean, looking back a little bit further back and kind of changing subjects a little bit, weren't you teammates with Max Verstappen for a little bit?
Yeah, back in 2014, we drove a year together in F3, and it was a blast. You'd be surprised how much you can learn from a 16-year-old back then.
Right.
I was 18, and one thing people also don't understand is, yes, you can test, you can prepare, and it is very important and crucial. Max for sure prepared like a crazy man, but at the same time, his talent was incredible because you know what? There is no excuse. I was in a car for 3 years, so he could have tested, but I was also in a car,
right?
And he got in there and he killed it.
Yeah,
and it taught me a lot. It taught me how to. One of the things, he was never really worried about taking too much risk, about putting the car on the wall, and that's not something easy to not be worried about.
It's difficult.
Yeah,
it's a very tough thing, especially in America where they don't usually insure the cars very well.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's kind of like, okay, you're going to pay a deductible, and then you're set.
And you're good.
So it's quite a little bit better there. But Max would leave the pits on cold tires, full whack.
Just did not.
Taking it crazy. But one thing that you would notice, they was always one step ahead, because when everyone's tires were coming in, he was already there. And it just, from free practice 1, if you're 2 steps ahead and then 1 step ahead in free practice 2 and just a bit ahead, by the time you get to qualifying, they're still figuring things out. You're already there. And it taught me a lot about how to just switch on and get the maximum out of myself. And immediately, as I learned from him, my performance stepped up massively. So I'm still very thankful to have ever driven with him, he knew how to get the most out of a car.
He is one of those, I think, rare finds, kind of like Raikkonen was at an early age, going straight in, Vettel, similar in Hamilton, that he has that kind of it factor, kind of like LeBron in the NBA, right? Like that you just pure natural talent. I mean, racing is something that is like a learned sport, right? You can learn to drive fast. I mean, we talk a lot about guys that maybe the only reason why they really are where they're at is because the ability for more track time, right? I mean, there are guys that make it.
It gets you so far, and that's for sure. Right. And it can get you to F1 if you're in Lance Stroll's position, But at the same time, there's talent and there's prep. And what Max Verstappen had was the perfect combination, having the funding to test and having an incredible natural ability. And when you put the two together, you make magic. You get the best equipment, the best driver, and the best track times. You're going to have something special. What
do you think about Max's kind of like off-track persona right now? I mean, he's kind of got this, I don't know the best way to put it, but kind of like this, screw you kind of, I'm just going to do me attitude, kind of a lot of young kids have, but there's no shame about it. I mean, it's like, you kind of saw his interview after Mexico race, and he was just like, yeah, I was on cruise control, like most times you want to be kind of humble about it. And it wasn't like sometimes how Hamilton says, and he's like, yeah, it was always a difficult race, but we weren't pushing that hard. He was like, this was the easiest race of my life.
Talking about Hamilton, one funny thing I would say after seeing every interview when I watch Formula One races, which isn't that often, you'd be surprised, is that I have to figure out what his favorite country is, because he says
it.
Best.
I know. He's trying to get fans.
This is the best.
Trying to get fans. The best crowd. And I know you just won, but bro, which one is it?
Keep it loyal at least. I think to the Brits, right?
Pretty cool, but man, you just said the Japanese were your favorite. Like,
right?
Where's the loyalty?
Even in Austin, he was like, "This crowd's amazing. They keep getting bigger. This is the best one."
What are you gonna do?
He secretly loves Austin because you know what? He won the World Championship in Mexico with a USA flag hat on. So
this is true. To him. And he spends a lot of time in LA.
Yes.
Question:
do
you have a hookup? Do you have a hookup? I don't have a hookup. How do we get Lewis Hamilton on the show when he's in LA?
I don't have a hookup at all.
I do not have a hookup with Lewis Hamilton.
I think a list of people.
If you hit up Kendall Jenner, she definitely has a hookup. But it's not that easy. I mean, we're talking about like the David Beckham of motorsport right now.
I know,
right?
He's on fire.
He's like, I'll do a podcast.
Yeah, I'd say on another note, back to Max Verstappen. This is one guy that I can tell you, I know for a fact that if you go to Ibiza with him, you will have the best time. If you go to Rage, this guy is a true champion.
He goes in.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the world champion of that.
I remember earlier this year, I think it was James Davison,
God.
was in Monaco with Max, right? But this was
just letting you know, James, if you are watching, it is already dangerous enough when you're with James Davison.
Yeah, so it is.
Add Verstappen into the equation and open checkbook. I'm sure you can make some serious damage.
So I remember James was like, he was there and he was Snapchatting. And this was the beginning of the season, right? Max wasn't 18 yet, I think. I think he was 17 or like, he hadn't really had his coming out party yet, right? Mm-hmm. Like he was still kind of trying to fly a little bit underneath the radar. I remember James was doing these Insta stories and they were out at the club one time and he was like, went and showed Max and Max was like, ducked and was like, oh, no, I'm not here. But now you see Max posting stuff of him like out and about.
By the way, all those sparklers? Just know it's coming to my table.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? He works hard, so he plays harder. That's okay.
Yeah,
as
that's
long
good.
As you're still doing the job. Look, apparently he was on cruise control in Mexico, so I guess it's working.
And that's the F1 lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
You'd be surprised. The more you meet the upper echelon, I'd say, or whatever you want to call it, they find like a rhythm of performing at their best and living life to the fullest. I mean, we're on this planet once, so I guess that's the way you want to do it, and it makes you happy. Go do it.
That's kind of like with all athletes, right? Like I follow a little bit Ewan Olsen also a Red Bull athlete. Professional free, or used to be a professional free skier, one of the best in the world.
It's pretty fun.
And lives in Monaco. But that guy used to be, he says it. He's like, dude, I used to be the biggest partier ever, but would go out, perform, and do 1080s, 12 or 1440s, just crazy tricks off these jumps, hungover.
Dude, I don't know about that.
How do you do that? I would feel sick.
Yeah.
If I wasn't hungover, imagine him.
Racing,
going upside down?
I don't know.
Spinning like that?
No.
Hungover? Impossible.
Adrenaline, though. Adrenaline is the cure, but I don't know how people are doing that. How they're doing racing hungover, just like...
I want to get to that level, we're talking Machina, but when you get to soccer players, that's another level. I don't understand.
Yeah.
They're on the field the next day.
And they're running.
They're running.
We're running.
To be fair, after Monaco, my first night, I don't go out very often, but Monaco is the best race in the world when you're not a driver.
I bet.
And the reason is you don't have to drive.
You just walk everywhere.
You go on boats. You have a few cocktails, to say the least. And I remember my first night in Monaco, I was with my camera guy. And, I cruised by the Red Bull Energy Station. I was like, hey, do you want to see the Red Bull Energy Station? We walked in, left at 2 in the morning. Still had the camera in our hands. And ended up getting home at 7 a.m. And 30 minutes later, the Formula Renaults were warming up, waking us up. And I was running down the harbor doing a workout with the personal trainer because I said I'm going to train at 8:30. I got to do it. So I slept for 30 minutes, got woken up by these Formula Renaults, made the training session. And I have to say, running when you're hungover is not so easy.
No, it's not.
No,
I've done it. Done it a few times.
Monaco works magic on people, I have to say.
It's the air. It's the oxygen.
It's the air you breathe in, at least on that week.
The Mediterranean oxygen. Beautiful women, beautiful cars. I mean, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Boats, bottles, beaches. And
what's not to like? So kind of moving a little bit further, well, still on topic, but let's go back 2 races.
Yeah.
Back to kind of the battle that went down. What do you think leading up to Lewis Hamilton winning the championship? Do you think it was a big part of Seb just kind of making a bunch of big mistakes in key moments? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a bit difficult. Obviously, Seb, he's a very emotional character, as you can see.
He's showing it this year, right?
This year, he's really shown it.
Yeah.
I think at Red Bull, everything was under control, and he was just on cruise control. But when it came to really putting it on the fight, Lewis probably did have the better car most of the year. But, there was a few mistakes that couldn't happen. Like this turn 1 incident in Singapore, for example, was something that when you're fighting for a world championship, we all know that having an incident like that is crucial, And those all led to a situation where I think it helped Lewis as well because his pressure was relieved. And at that point, he was really just taking all risk, full whack, because he could.
Right.
So I think Vettel's mistakes also allowed Lewis to perform at his best. And all in all, it really made that separation and that gap just continue to spread.
Do you think that who was at fault for the Singapore move?
I think
it was Vettel.
I think Vettel caused the incident, but at the same time,
just by moving over on
Kimi, I think a bit of it might be a racing incident. It's hard because you shouldn't move over when there's a car inside, but I don't think he realized he was 3 wide. So
right.
At the end of the day, it could have been avoided.
Yeah.
But when you're starting on pole and you want to keep it, sometimes you do things that for sure if you could go back, you wouldn't do it again. The
thing is, with Max, where he was sending it, obviously he had all the momentum.
Max had nowhere to go.
The move was his, but he could have just lifted out of it. Obviously, are you going to lift out?
I think Max was the most innocent in that case. Him and Kimi. I mean, this guy started in the front row. He got blitzed. At that point, all you're doing is driving down to the brake zone, and the guy comes down on you and pinches you. At that speed, it's more on Vettel anytime, I'd say, than on Verstappen. I would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have backed off either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you're in the heat of the moment in the race. Man, you would expect the guys to give you a gap, and of course you'd fade out in the brake zone. But
you've been seeing a lot of that in Formula One lately. A lot of these 3 wide, someone making it 3 wide, knowing they're making it 3 wide, and it's like you have to know the consequences.
Yeah.
Like how many times do cars really make it through 3 wide at turn 1?
No.
Yeah.
Or even any point during the race, but even turn 1 at the start, how many times are you really making it through 3 wide? There's always contact.
Right. Yeah.
Why take that risk? I understand it's hard to pass in Formula One and you're trying to get the most at the start.
Yeah.
But
3
come
wides,
on.
you won every single time. it's not really the best case.
What about the Verstappen pass in Austin? Penalty or no penalty?
I think the FIA sometimes has to look at him. This guy, what are you trying to do? Hold him back? I understand that it was a track limit situation, but man, the guy drove from 16th. I think he did. I think it was 16th.
It's something like that, yeah.
I think at that point he deserved that podium. He worked his butt off for it, and he made a move, and he was clearly faster, and it wasn't going to make a big difference, a couple of inches. But, the problem with the FIA, I don't think, is the fact that they penalized him. It's the inconsistency with the penalties. It's that, would anyone in the field get that penalty? No, but because it was for third place and it was Verstappen and he had just passed the whole field, he can't get away with it, and we have to show him. It doesn't seem like it's the consistency of everyone gets the same penalty. And it's something across the board that happens in motorsport a lot of times is with the race direction. It's not the problem of the penalty. It's the problem of the consistency. Does everyone get it or not?
So. Yeah. I mean, the problem is you just didn't see a lot of that where they're like cutting the inside of the course. Yeah. Like we were talking about at turn, whatever the second to last corner is, where everyone goes off on the outside. It's like nobody's making a pass there. So, if everyone's going off there, okay, you can't like time penalty everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I believe it was turn 17, it was the right-hander, that he made the pass on the inside.
The triple.
Yeah, the triple right-hander. Yeah.
I've personally driven in Austin, and I can say that there is no advantage going in the inside there because the car loses balance anyway. You're scrubbing speed. So it was so stupid. I mean, like, guys, he's driving over a rumble strip, literally balancing the car over it. Is there really a penalty? It's not like he lunged into the corner too fast and flew wide.
I think Hamilton made a pretty good point where he was like, I think we need to look at some of these newer circuits that we have about there being so much runoff now in areas that you don't need all that runoff, right? It's a difference if you're going straight into a hard brake zone. You need that straight line runoff that they've started adding at tracks. But on the exit or the apexes of corners, why isn't the grass or gravel? I'm saying not having the gravel, but why isn't grass right next to the curb? Like you allow for all this room of the, for gray area, essentially, for the officials to be like, oh, that's 4 off.
To make their job harder.
Right.
To hire more people.
I have one conclusion that I've said so many times, but obviously one person doesn't make a difference. I'm not saying that we have to eliminate all of the safety precautions, but there's a happy medium. Silverstone, for example, the new turn 1, which is usually flat. They've done a great job. What they've done is given it, 1.5 meters, so about 5 feet of grass, and then they go back to asphalt and the gravel and the wall. So it's just enough to where if you do run wide, you're not going to crash the car, but you're definitely going to lose 3 or 4 tenths.
Right.
And Hockenheim now, they've replaced the AstroTurf because everyone was going flat in turn 1 and running it illegally. They've made the AstroTurf in a way that the car loses grip because they've extended the length of the grass on it. And what it does is it penalizes you without risking any danger. It penalizes you enough to where you lose time for doing it. And I think that's what it should be. If you want to run wide, go do it, but make sure that you lose time.
Yeah. They used to, like you said, the AstroTurf that they used to have, like you could run wide, but you weren't getting drive off the corner anymore.
No,
right.
you were just going to lose a bit of grip, lose 2 or 3 tenths, maybe even get overtaken. That's enough of a penalty. You want a safety balance? Okay, make sure that they don't gain time. People will stop doing it. So
does COTA still have AstroTurf, or is
COTA has nothing? COTA is one of the craziest tracks. Last year IMSA ran with us there, and the LMPC cars are running almost the same time as LMP2 because of the fact that we had track limits and they were running about 15 yards off track. It was an absolute joke.
Oh my
so this year they tried to play speed bumps. The GT cars were ripping them right off.
Right, of course, because they just.
It's not an easy solution for me. I think they should just throw in a meter of grass. Everyone's going to lose time by the time they go off and on. It's just enough where they lose time. So.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. We need to start pulling out grass and everything.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I mean, there is a happy medium because you get tracks like Road Atlanta. It's awesome. People love the epic old school stuff, but at the same time, you don't want to have to go off track and total a car.
No, exactly.
$1 million in damage. That's not necessary. But there is the happy medium that you can find.
So what did you think about, you did ovals for a little bit, right?
Yeah, I did a few ovals back in the Star Mazda days, and I did enjoy them at the time. It's a completely different challenge. It's something that, you have to learn how to run in dirty air and get the most out of the car and set up a car for the race, which isn't easy because over the distance with the tire where things change. But I'd say for me, my favorite kind of racing back then was street racing.
Yeah.
Actually in Formula 3 running through streets of Po, something like that.
Yeah,
it's
Po.
Extremely narrow. Much more narrow than the 90-degree corners you usually get in America. Running Macau, which for me is still probably one of the most epic tracks of all time. It's something that you get a thrill out of, and the concentration level is incredible. But it's not the easiest match with long distance sports car races, because that level of concentration for 6 or 10 hours would be exhausting.
Yeah, they're totally different types of concentration, right? Yeah. But Po in the wet is insane.
I have done it, and I enjoyed it so much. I remember in 2015, I was driving a Po in the wet. We did the free practice 1 and 2, and it was pouring, and I was in P1 by a good amount of time. I think it was 1.2 second advantage, because I was taking every risk. And I was having so much fun. I felt like Senna, I was like, I am killing it. And then the team comes on the radio and it's like, box this lap. There's too much rain. But at that time, I got the radio wet, so I couldn't hear, because there was these puddles in some of the corners, and what would happen is, actually, as the car would aquaplane in the low-speed corners, you'd get grip out of it somehow. So I was using them, but it got everything wet in the car. So I was coming down the main straight, and as the rain picked up, I aquaplaned mid-straight, tore the gearbox right off the side of the chassis, or the back of the chassis. And I ended up missing qualifying because the car wasn't ready in time, and I had to start every race from last, which, in a tight street course like that.
Wait, did you bin it like in the kink?
The kink, yeah.
I was there in 2015 in Renault.
I was doing the kink flat every lap.
In the wet?
Rain, yeah.
Jesus. I was like a little
Look at TJ's like, I was in a slower car.
I was definitely lifting.
They had more downforce.
They had more aero and my helps.
They had more downforce.
It was great until I hit the wall and saw the gearbox as I was going back.
No.
Ciao.
Actually, you know what's the crazy part? This is now a story I can laugh at, because it's been a while. I remember I was backwards and hit the thing a few times. I look and I see my teammate coming in the rain. He comes around the kink, loses it, hits the back of my gearbox.
What?
No.
Puts a hole in the tub. And poor guy had nothing he could do. And I was just like,
oops, sorry about that.
Sorry, bro. Now you look back and, you have these memories. It's crazy. I had one big crash in Macau. I don't like going into it because it makes me sound like the only thing I did was crash. I've only had 2 crashes, but they were
epic.
I made sure that if I crashed, I went out in style.
Is that anywhere on YouTube?
Actually, if you search my last name, I think the first thing that comes up is me backflipping at 180 mile an hour.
Okay, if we find that, and on the edited version for YouTube, maybe we can insert that in.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. Did you wait? Who had the spa?
That was me.
Okay.
I tore the roll bar.
Third crash. We'll also insert that video if we can find it.
That one was insane, right?
I tore the roll bar off the chassis, and I actually like to say right now, you're welcome to Formula 3, because they've modified the cars because of my crash. Because
that's a feat. Seriously, that's a feat. If you can get the...
I ripped the roll bar off the chassis, and I was skidding across the track on my head. Oh. And thank God to my Schubert helmet. I walked out with no injury, no concussion, nothing. I don't know how.
That's crazy.
Now they've actually increased the carbon by about 5 inches so that you can't rip the roll bar off. So I did something good there.
Yeah,
innovator.
Since then, in sports cars, I've stayed away from any major crashes, so it's been okay so far.
So, well, that's interesting. Thank goodness, right?
That one.
Now you have teammates that can give you a lot of shit if you are that guy.
Yeah. How does that work with if you're sharing a car and someone bins it? Is it just on the guy that bins it? Or
I put it in the gravel once in a moment that I'm not very proud of in Le Mans this year. I had some rear brake locking, and I was a smart one. I was like, I'm going to save the front brake discs because, we got to save the front brake discs for the end of the race so we don't change the discs. But I should have just kind of gone with the instinct, and I didn't at the time. I had some locking, and I put it in the gravel. We lost a lap, which sucked. And, you just sink.
Right.
You've just... Last year I won this race by a lap, and this year I'm a lap behind after an hour.
Right.
Like, how can I make a mistake like that? But, we're all human. We make mistakes. And a big part is I'm 23 years old, at the time 22. You make mistakes. You can't learn without mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it wasn't the biggest race in the world, but it didn't actually lose us the race because we had a gearbox failure, an ECU failure, a loom failure, and everything else.
It's one of those weekends.
It was just one of those weekends. It wasn't meant to be, but at the same time, it taught me a huge lesson, And I have tried to earn the respect back from the team, and slowly we did, and we're back at it now. But it's one of those things you remember. So don't bend the car, especially when you have 2 teammates and a team of 40 people working behind you. It's not something great, but you can't be scared of it. You just have to learn.
So one of the things that we've been doing in the previous podcast, and we've rebranded it and everything, is we like to talk a lot about the mental side of things. And so when you have something like that happen, I know you've had other big wrecks and everything. What have you found? I know every driver is different, but what have you found to be one of like the big things for you to overcome that and put it behind you to where you're back on pace? Because we've talked about this in a podcast earlier this year, where, it's difficult. There's the fear of doing it again. Like, what have you found to be one of the biggest things? Just get back at it and not really lose any steps.
Short-term memory loss almost.
Yeah.
It's something hard, I mean, I can remember my biggest ever kind of time I dealt with that was when I was younger, actually, when I was 12 in karting.
Yeah.
I had a time that I was winning everything in America. Back in Oklahoma, I won that. Then I had a flip in the go-kart, and I was terrified. Like, I was just not, I was crazy. Everyone knew I was the crazy guy that you wouldn't mess with.
Right.
And I was arrogant and cocky, and it was great. For racing, it was great because everyone was intimidated by me. And I probably took me 6 months to get back on it just because I was so scared to crash again. And I don't know, it was just like a blog. It wasn't that I was scared, but at the same time, I was just holding back. And it took me a lot of pounding to get back to it. And finally I did, obviously, but fast tracking back to when you have this moment in the mall or something, in a more serious situation like Star Mazda or any high level racing where a crash can be everything to you, to your sponsors, to your team, you lose a bit of faith. I'd say the first big thing is admitting that you've made a mistake to yourself, because it's hard. Sometimes you just want to make excuses or be like, the rear brake's locked, or I could have easily said the rear brake's locked. It was not my fault. It was the car or whatever.
Right.
I was driving it. I could have sorted it out. So first things first, you have to admit that you've made the mistake. Then there's no problem speaking to, for me, the engineer is basically the guy that operates the team, going to the engineer, whoever is important to you in this program, and saying, hey, look, I am so sorry I made this mistake. I'm human. I can't be perfect. I understand what we've lost from it, but all I can do is prove to you guys that I won't make that mistake again. I can learn from it, and you guys help me. Then from there we had conversations, and where do we make the next steps? And I had to show them that I understood where my mistake lied, and they could show me that it's okay. Let's keep going. And from there, we've been on the podium every race since.
Right. And there has to be a lot of self-belief behind that too, right? Because if you don't believe in yourself wholeheartedly, I had a conversation with one of my drivers this past weekend. I go, we believe it. It's like, we believe in you, but you have to be the self-motivating person. I believe to be a top-level athlete, and racing's obviously high-level athletics, and that you have to be self-motivating, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I had a sports psychologist for a long time, and I still work with him, and I tell people, you shouldn't be ashamed of having someone that helps you.
No.
That's first of all, but it's all inside of you, and it goes to anything. I think in sports, we deal with it a lot more often than normal people, but in business, in any situation in life, believing in yourself, understanding when you've made mistakes, admitting it to yourself and to the people around you, it's important because that's what helps you lift yourself quicker. And then from there, it's, getting the people you trust, lean on them. And if they have faith in you, you just have to have the faith in yourself and the drive in yourself, because that's where you find it. The passion is there. And what truly makes you happy is, going out there. And for me, it's not about winning a race anymore, because, racing, it's complicated, it's political, it's difficult. But one thing that I know is when I get the most out of myself, that's what makes me happy. So whenever I have a low, it's just going out there and driving the best that I can. And, I have the confidence in myself now to know that on my best day, I am one of the best drivers out there. So I know that if I can give it my all, maybe the car's not there today or something was wrong, but if I did my best, that's all I can do.
Right. And sometimes your best is a fourth place.
Yeah. I've had it several times this year.
Right.
Sometimes they were better. And then we go back, we work on the car, we work together, and we get better. But all you can do is give it your all. If you give it your all, that's all you can do. No one can be disappointed in your best.
So how important do you think is a sports psychologist?
For me, honestly, it was one of the greatest things I could have had, especially in the Formula 3 phases, the junior Formula phases. It's a phase that you fill yourself with a lot of self-doubt, because you're not going to be champion every year. You're not going to win every race. It's impossible.
Very, very. How many people in the last, let's say 20 years have gone and won everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably count it on one hand.
You know, even Vettel's had 4 world championships in the row, right? He's one of the best. 1 year later, he's in a Ferrari, the best, the most famous team. And for 3 years, no one mentions him when you say who are the best drivers in the world. You say Hamilton, Rosberg,
Alonso still.
And you don't even mention Vettel. This is a guy that's just won 4 world championships. So imagine how he feels. Any of us have this situation that you fill yourself with self-doubt and you're just thinking, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Or maybe I was the best, but I lost it. Or whatever your situation is, that's when a sports psychologist, the only thing they're there to do is loud. It's the funny thing is they don't even have to say that much, but it's for me, it was something to have the comfort of someone to talk to and admit myself, everything that I'm processing in my head, just talking it out. And a lot of times you realize it yourself just by having someone to tell them. You realize, oh gosh, why am I thinking in this way? Or I see what the problem is.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you figure it out yourself, but it's still good to just have that person to lean on.
Yeah. It's like you get a question and you kind of just work through it.
Yeah.
Talk about it. And then you're like, whoa, I just confined myself into a room that I'm not even in. Yeah. That was all like a mental thing that I just put myself in.
It's okay. I understand. And they're there to relate. And when you have a question, they're there to give you a positive answer. But a lot of time you find it within yourself because it's all in there.
Yeah.
I mean, a champion and a loser and the same person, it's just in the head.
Yeah, it totally is. And it's kind of interesting. Like you can oftentimes people just default to like negative mental chatter. They'll just default to like right away something happens and then they'll kind of just like think about it. Yeah. And it'll all be like, oh man, like I'm this, I'm that, and whatever. And they box themselves up totally. They take away any chance of them even having success because they do that negative.
In 2015, I was not doing good my second half of Formula 3. I was just not getting results. It was times I was qualifying 15th, and I couldn't figure it out, right? And then, 6 months later, driving against some of the same drivers, beating them in an LMP2 car. Yeah. And it wasn't the talent that changed. It was the mental state that changed. And going into 17, I'd say the biggest thing about winning a world championship that helped me was the confidence. The confidence in myself, knowing that when I give it my all, I'm good enough. So
it's there, yeah.
So there was just the self-doubt went away a lot, and it just went into when I figure myself out, when I'm happy, I'm doing my best. Always do your best. That's all you can do.
It is all you can do. So back to our original topic, you made that jump to sports cars. What would be, and I did the same thing, TJ is still the Formula Car dream. He's living that Formula Car, IndyCar dream still. Land. He's still in La La Land. I made that jump early for a different reason, more of just budget. I mean, it was similar, but I made it earlier, budgetary reasons. But what would be your biggest piece of advice to those kids that they have that dream, they've done a couple years of Formula Car racing, they're in that USF 2000, first year star Mazda kind of, maybe they did 1 year Formula 3 in Europe, and they kind of don't know where to go, but they're chasing that dream, but they still want to be a professional race car driver. What's your advice to those guys?
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations. Obviously, each person knows their own financial state and their own situation and the relationship that they have. But I think that a foundation in Formula Car racing can be very important for anyone because it teaches you the racecraft and the raw speed. Raw ability that comes in Formula Cars and Mazda F2000, F3, understanding downforce, mistakes, how they're paid for. Obviously, if you crash an F2000 car, you might be down 20 or 30 grand at the most. That I can imagine. You're down. You crash a prototype car, you might be out of a drive. You might have taken $350,000 in damage, and you might not get another drive. So it's a different situation. That doesn't mean you can't make mistakes, but I think that foundation is very important, and it's finding your path. I mean, if you have a lot of connections in the IndyCar world, good for you. What's the percentage of that? Probably 1% of the drivers. Formula One is very similar. Where does it leave the rest? There might be one guy that's winning all the championships. He might make it. Doesn't mean you can't make it in another direction.
Right.
For me, that was sports cars. A lot of you guys, the opportunity right now that sports car racing has presented itself with the way the system works, I think it's a very big discussion in the sports car world because a lot of gentleman drivers get upset about it. But for example, last year I was a silver driver. I was coming out of F3. I was one of those top 10 kind of guys. I wasn't the champion, but you know, I knew I had pace in me. I was a silver, and it presents this great opportunity for all you young junior Formula Car drivers. Because I mean, some people are angry that these super silvers are coming up, but in reality, racing is able, you know, junior Formula Cars is there to present us, to give us the opportunity. We become a silver driver. Now you have an opportunity to come drive in America and GTD, or you can go to Europe and drive in a P2 car. You're a silver. The teams need a performance driver.
Yeah.
You know, you're usually funding yourself in Formula Cars, so why can't you do it in a prototype? And if you can do a good job and win races, you know, in GTD, you might become a gold driver. But, you know, you've showed yourself. You were given this 1 year period to prove yourself that you're good enough to be a gold, to work with the team as a professional. As well in Europe, you prove yourself as a silver and go, yes, I am good enough to be a professional. So for me, sports car racing was incredible because it's given me everything I have now, which was, you know, it gave me the confidence, it gave me the experience, it gave me 1 year window to get the experience, the confidence, and prepare myself to be a professional driver.
Yeah.
And I made that transition from being a junior to being an amateur and becoming a professional driver. So for me, I think sports cars is a great opportunity. Obviously, if you can get yourself to Formula One, there's about a 0.00001% chance, maybe less, that you'll make it. So good luck, enjoy. And you know, there is a lot of drivers that make it into IndyCar, and great for them. But you know, if you ask me now, would I rather drive what I'm driving or an IndyCar? I'd say what I'm driving. You know, I love the car, and to be fair, we're probably not much slower around the track than an IndyCar. No. And next year at Le Mans, some of the cars are going to be topping out at 225 mile an hour in the woods at night. So talked about the Indy 500 being incredible, 235 mile an hour, but we're only 10 miles an hour off, and we have to brake for a hairpin. So it's not much different. It's you know, it's incredible no matter what you're doing. You know, you just have to find your passion in that. Whether it's a GT car, for me, it was a prototype because it was something that was still relevant to a Formula car. So I'm just driving a big old Formula car for the rest of my career.
That's cool. And for those that watching that don't know that in international sports car racing a few years ago, they came out with a licensing system, and it's gone through a lot of criticism and a lot of changes on how they rate drivers. But essentially, you have, was it 5 levels or 4 levels?
4 levels. There's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Essentially, gold and platinum are the same.
Yeah.
Bronze and silver are very similar, to where it's classified as an amateur driver and a professional driver. And in most championships, there is categories that are pro-am, so you need at least one amateur driver in the seat. But any team that's spending money or however they are, you want to win. You're racing to win. So you're looking for the best amateur that you can.
Right.
And a lot of times teams will give breaks budgetary-wise. If they have a finance team, sometimes they'll even give silvers a free drive or paid drive. That's not always the situation. But usually for the junior drivers coming out of Formula Car, it does give you that opportunity. Imagine you're paying $250,000 or $300,000 to drive in Star Mazda or F2000. I'm not exactly sure.
Let's raise that budget a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
TJ knows about that.
A little bit.
I'm saying on the low side.
No, right.
If it's a great situation, I'm not saying, okay, it's a bad and a good situation. Let's say it's $500,000-$600,000, right? Good news is that means you might have that money if you're looking at Star Mazda again, and let's say you have $500,000, which is not an easy situation to be in.
No.
Don't get me wrong.
And Star Mazda's going up now
with the new car.
Just to give you an idea, when I did F3, it started at 300,000. By the time I left, they were looking for 950,000 euros. So
that's gnarly.
Things spiraled out of control.
Yeah, I think I would just want to add in that, like, if you were like in the junior Formula cars, I think 3 years ago. That's like the hot ticket for like any of the junior formulas, because they're just going up.
My first year in Star Mazda, budgets were more around 350,000.
Yeah,
and that was already a lot.
Yeah, right, and that's how it ended.
My family couldn't support that, but we found ways to do it.
So when I was looking at doing Renault 2.0 Euro Series, okay, so this was 04.
Oh,
I think 04.
I was like 9 years old.
Yeah, thanks for showing my age. Yeah, I am. And no racing for the kid. No racing.
Get a minute. Get a minute.
Give him a
not unless the grandparents want to sponsor, right?
They can sponsor it, but I think they should sponsor some Callaways or something.
Exactly. So I remember the contract that was on the table for it was 120. It was a little bit discounted, but it was 125,000 euro to do a full proper season race championship winning budget, right? Proper testing, new tires, 125,000 euro to do the full season. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's gone up more than double.
It's insane how much. And okay, the cars are a little bit more expensive to run. Well, the inflation,
But
blah blah
not
blah.
by much.
Not that much.
And I would gladly take a step down in car performance, like go down to whatever the 04 Renault was,
right?
To be fair,
to drive
I'm sure
that.
it performed not much worse than a Star Mazda car.
What do you think?
No.
Like a couple seconds off of
Maybe
what
a
it does
second or
today?
two?
I would gladly.
But if anything, you have to
Shave off.
say the performance gain is more in the tires that we're running now.
And the thing is, the level
Not necessarily the chassis.
Right.
And
I guess it's a little bit safer, maybe. That's the
definitely probably a little bit safer.
I'd sacrifice safety.
USF 2000 is a big gain, right? When
I
they
will
went
say something,
Yeah.
and
that's
not to be a butt face, so I would say it in horrible terms.
true.
The sad thing about Star Mazda is the budget's going up and the car is still an old piece of crap, you know?
Well, the new one is
Have they upgraded the car?
They did the whole
Look at him.
thing.
He's so Euro now. He
Yeah,
doesn't
you
even
don't
know
even
what's
know.
going. He doesn't even know what's going on.
To be fair, I've watched 3 Formula 1 races this year, and one of them I was actually in the pool in Monaco not watching it.
Listen to this guy.
So,
Okay, so it's the F4 car,
okay.
but they added a.
So wait, it's an
2-liter.
F4 car, and they charge that kind of money.
It's this It's essentially
There's
USF
nothing
2.
you guys can do about it, by the way. It's
Yes.
not that I'm saying that you guys can change it. This is just the situation that racing.
It's a state of the fair
This
right
is
now.
the state of the situation.
It's the USF 2000 tub, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Right, but
Which
it's
is the
different
F4.
aero package on it, and different
And-
tires and different
Which
power
isn't-
plants.
I think
I
it's
understand
270.
It's not a horrible situation in the fact that, you know, for teams, if you buy an F2000 chassis in the future, you want to upgrade your team, you can
But
upgrade their aero
nobody's doing that. They
Yeah.
just get
I-
2-liter in the Mazda. The idea was that you could do that.
The
but
idea
nobody's-
was a separate idea, but
Doesn't work that way.
270 horsepower is pretty high numbers for that kind of chassis.
Yeah, it honestly, like, it's a huge step up in car. Like, it at Indy road course, they were running like I think low 20s, and the track record was like a 22.9.
Okay.
So they're like 3 seconds quicker there, but
Yeah.
at other places it was like 5 seconds.
In your last years in F3, what was the horsepower?
250 horsepower.
250 horsepower, but a lot more downforce.
This is the crazy thing, and the reason that Formula 3 spiraled out of control was, one, I would say that there was a few families that were doing extremely well financially.
And buying up teams. We
Buying-
talked about this
buying-
already,
buying
too.
we talked
teams
about that.
and basically throwing a car in a wind tunnel. And I have to say my team was throwing a car in a wind tunnel every week as well.
That's
because another driver owned the team as well.
Right.
You had to do it.
And sometimes his parts were.
Wait,
you
is
know,
it
his car-
open? Is Aero
Well,
open?
here's the thing. There's way too many gray zones.
That's like NASCAR.
And-
Why are NASCARs in wind tunnels?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
supposed to fit a certain mold, right?
There's black and white, and there's a nice gray zone in the middle where they said, you know, you could have wickers on the side of the car, but it couldn't pass this zone. But they
Right.
didn't really. They just left it in a box.
And they didn't
So
say like the
you can
shape
do
of that
anything
wicker.
you wanted in that box. You know, I'll give you an example. We were allowed simple ducts on the front. But what defines simple? So we had these ducts on the bottom of the car that became winglets, actually, that whipped the air over the suspension. So our ducts were about, I'd say, almost a foot long, and bent, and they were extra wings. We had ducts under the front wing that were deviating the wing. We had brake ducts in the rear wheels that actually essentially became winglets and threw the air into holes in the diffuser that we cut.
That's gnarly.
We had winglets going off the side of the side flanks, and we had them on the chassis as well. But this is just the way things spiraled. It started with nothing and slowly went up. And if you wanted to keep up, you needed these changes because we're talking 2 or 3 tenths over a lap.
Yeah.
In Formula 3, you had 33 cars within half a second. So we needed to do it, but then the budget just keeps going. If you want to have a car in a wind tunnel every week,
Right.
you got to pay for it. So
Someone's got to pay for it.
So yeah,
And it ain't the team.
So
No, definitely
it's never
not.
going to be the team. They're not going to lose money
brutal.
for it.
Did
No.
they like close that up in the
They
regulations?
did, but
or-
then loopholes always present themselves. So that's why you see this the same in the Mazda game. I'm not going to say that budget's going to permanently be there, but it goes through waves. And unfortunately, your whole junior career is based in one wave. It's not like
It
it
is.
can
Yeah.
change like this. It
Yeah.
changes over 4 or 5 year blocks. So it's not something that if you're in this wave right now, you can't just wait for it to ride out. You have one. shot.
You're in your junior Formula career
Your
right
junior
now.
Formula career is 5 years. So your window is, unfortunately just affected by the situation.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying is like now now that they have this new car, which is great. It's a great car. Everybody that drove it was like, yo, this thing is like,
coming from the other car,
step up.
Yeah.
Has to be a huge step.
Yeah, I think it was a dinosaur. It was great. It was a dinosaur. So it's great though. But
it's racing.
And I would add 3 seconds to the to the time per lap. That's fine. If you're like lowering the budget by half, I'm fine with that. I don't know if you guys have a problem, but like I would gladly add on 3 seconds per lap if it shaves off half of the budget.
Yeah, I think most people are that way. I mean, in the end, a lot of these development series are exactly that, right? They're development. I mean, very few drivers are actually getting career opportunities because of how they did in Star Mazda.
Yeah.
No.
Or USF 2000.
Well, one thing,
or Formula 3. And a lot of, and you know this because you're in the world, how many of these development programs are just total marketing BS?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, straightforward, 2 things I have learned in the last year of being in the top class.
Right.
Well, when I say top class, I mean the main series, right? So not the support series.
Right.
There's LMP1 still, so
yeah.
I can't. But you know, everyone thinks that if they're in front of the IndyCar Championship or in front of Formula 1, they're going to be noticed. I will tell you that most of the time, the team managers are actually busy in engineering briefings and other things to actually care what's happening on track. You know, sometimes there's the pre-race an hour before a race. We're not watching.
No.
You know, and it's not to be criticizing you, but do what's best for you. Don't worry about who's watching because they're not watching.
They're not watching at all.
And a second thing is these development programs these days. Yes, they give you hope, but it's something that's part of history. Like cigarettes were part of Formula cars because. You know, these days there's junior programs, and I'm not going to name them because that's not really fair to say. Drivers are paying to be a part of them.
Yeah.
You know, to use the name, trying to give hope or sell it to their sponsors, and maybe for one of the 15 or 20 drivers part of the programs, it's working. For the others, you know, they're just, you know, it's selling false hope.
I think for some it legitimizes them a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, for sure it does. Right? I have a factory that thinks I'm the next guy.
You're right.
Right? And you know, to most people, you know, us that are kind of in the inner circle, we know what's going on. But to most people and to corporations, they don't know what's going on. All they know is you're doing FP1 in a Formula 1 car.
Right.
Yeah. Or another perfect example is like I have sponsors or funders. Great, right? This is a situation that not many people have.
Right.
Let's say I have a sponsor and I am a Ferrari Junior. I'm just using the name because everyone knows Ferrari. I'm a Ferrari Junior. How much better does it sound to try to get sponsorship funds when I say, I'm in Formula 3, I'm going to be in Formula 2 next year with your guys' support, but you know what, I'm a Ferrari Junior and I have a possibility to make it to the top if you help me. For that funder, it legitimizes it, right? So I understand the situation for some people, but...
Oh, I would like to invite you to an F1 race with our hospitality pass. Hello.
At Ferrari.
Welcome. To the motherland.
They're probably paying for it too.
Oh, of course they are.
Yeah.
So
they're paying for the food.
It's interesting, you know. It's a hard thing, but it's one of those things. In my opinion, looking at drivers now, I seriously, you have to also see that a lot of it's personal relationships, talking to the right people, being in the right place at the right time, having a little bit of luck, having talent. It all adds together. So it's not one certain thing. You need luck. You need talent. You need skills of marketing and knowing the right people and being in the right place at the right time. And everything changes every year. So sports in general is not easy. But when I look back, one thing I say is I believe that junior Formula cars are very important in your career. I believe it's a step that you have to go through. It's that development phase, but there's a certain time when you look and you say, right, I have one bullet left in my gun, right? Like my parents, they say,
I need to be a professional.
My parents,
my
parents do very well. They're not the richest, they're not the poorest. They're doing very well. They gave me a deal, you know, in the last year. They said, this is your last year. Dad wants to build his retirement. He wants to be happy. This is what he has for you, and that's all he's got. And if you have some sponsors, you can find the program you want to be in. So he gave me a budget, and then I saw the program that was best for me. I found, you know, the rest of the budget and negotiated with the team to get something sorted. And I looked at sports cars because I knew that if I could prove myself, I had a chance.
Yeah.
I didn't have that chance anywhere else. Like, great, you made it to IndyCar, you paid $3 million. When you're going to get paid, there's a big difference. And for me, I want a long-term future. I don't want 1 year. You know, maybe it's different if you get that one shot in Formula 1 because that was your dream. But for me, that wasn't it. And, you know, I put all my chips in one basket and got the chance to prove myself in a sports car, and I'm still here. So
let's talk about that IndyCar and like how you could be an IndyCar and you're not paid to be a race car driver.
What was it that, I know this is the same, not the same, but the same. What was it, 2 or 3 years ago, where Kanaan was like almost out of a ride, and he needed to, Tony Kanaan needed to bring $2 million to race. Like, that's a joke, right?
That's crazy.
But that's where it's
especially for how much you're risking too in IndyCar.
I'll tell you, I wouldn't be in an IndyCar personally unless you put me in a Ganassi Penske or an Andretti car, because I'm not going to the IMS Motor Speedway without a car that I personally feel confident and safe. Doesn't mean that you're 100% safe. But I would only drive in a car that I feel like I have a better chance of safety. Because you know what? You are risking your life. Say what you want. You are.
And especially in that.
It's an incredible racing series. It's an incredible race. One of the best ever, but I wouldn't do it without feeling confident.
I don't think I could ever do it.
Right, like if you're risking all of that, you want to know at least that like, I have a shot at this thing. I'm not just going to be...
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's funny, every year, 3 years ago, I was like, these guys are completely crazy, 235 mile an hour. And now I'm looking at doing 225 mile an hour in Le Mans in the woods at night thinking, yeah, those guys are crazy. I'm a bit crazy too.
This is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, we have problems. We all do. But, IndyCar is an interesting place, especially with right now. My big debate with IndyCar, when I was looking at from Formula 3, I seriously looked back at America again. And I was thinking, Indy Lights budgets are $1.2 million more or less. Maybe it's more now, maybe it's less. I don't know. That was at the time.
It's about right.
Yeah, it's about right.
That's about right. I'm pretty sure with the experience I have, I can get an IndyCar driver for that. And now it's changed again. It always changes. At the time, that was the situation. I was like, you know what? With a few IndyCar teams, if I show up with $1.2 million, I'll probably get a drive.
Right.
And I was just like, but when am I going to get a paid drive? There's a difference.
Yeah.
When am I going to get in a Ganassi seat? When am I going to get in a good seat? Am I ever going to get in one? It's so hard to know. There's more than just a Ganassi seat. Even a Schmidt seat is incredible. But there's so many drivers paying to be there.
Well, you don't want to get labeled that you're the paying driver, right? Yeah. That's kind of one of the hardest things about moving up in the racing world is it's very easy to be labeled as a paying driver because you have to pay all your way unless you're some phenom. You're paying your way to get to the top.
What are you going to do?
And how about the road to Indy? Incredible. And do not get me the wrong way. I have to say it's incredible what they do. They give an opportunity to drivers. But look at drivers like Tristan Vautier, and I don't remember who was before him. No, Joseph did a good job, but Tristan and a few other drivers came in, qualified in the Fast Six, like 5 races in a row.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He did really
good. In a car
good.
that was not very proven. Jack Hawksworth came in a Brian Herta car when Brian Herta was struggling with budget, was in the Fast Six several times. A year later,
nowhere.
You don't have the Indy Lights budget anymore. You don't have that money from Mazda Road to Indy. You don't have a drive. You were cut off.
Thanks.
Is that fair?
Thanks for the budget 1 year.
Yeah, thanks for the budget 1 year. I still look at Tristan's year that year. The guy was a phenom, and he had to go back to Indy Lights.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. There's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah, it's a sad thing, but it's reality, and now they're all in sports cars.
In sports cars.
And to put it in perspective, like in racing, we're talking about like these budgets and everything about going pro and like all the different things you got to think about and all the different ways you have to pay to like be in a seat of which you have talent to be there anyways.
Yeah.
Compared to like, I come from football and playing that sport where if you have the talent to be there, all you're talking about is the amount of money you're making.
Yeah.
In pros.
What's my rookie contract going to be?
Like
what's my guarantee?
What's my guarantee? League minimum. Like if you're like subpar, you get league minimum, and it's like I'm cool with that. I'm getting paid a lot still. But like you get your agent, you're like, who's my agent? You're working out $1 million deals.
It's crazy.
But then the talent, like you as a race car driver, you can have the talent for sure to be there. But then it's like, now put on your funding hat, figure out the business, figure out like how to be a leader in this and create ROI like carters that are 10 years old, you should know what ROI means right off the bat. You got to know ROI because that's going to be the biggest thing.
Please explain that to me. That might have been my issue.
I was about to say,
maybe that's why I didn't make. What's ROI?
ROI, check that. Return on investment.
Oh, okay, cool. I got that. Thanks.
You're never going to get the return on investment that's put in most of the time.
Most of the time. You got to create a roundabout way.
Here's another funny thing. When I did 2 years in American racing, the amount of, excuse me, but BS that they feed you about how you have to be a businessman, a marketer, ROI, investments, and all this stuff, marketing powers. You have to be the perfect spokesperson. Yes, I know it is important. Don't get me wrong. Like, you have to be a professional. You are a professional athlete. You're being paid to represent someone. So, yes, you have to do a good job. But then I go to Europe, and they're like, shut up and drive, go fast, win races.
Right.
Talk about the rest. Because you know what? You're paying to play anyway.
It's still a sport.
You're paying to play to be the best. So go be the freaking best and focus on that for now. You're in the development phases. What you have to learn is be professional and shut up and drive, because that's what they want from you. Now circle back. A lot of the skills that they shove down your throat, you don't actually need. You know, it's like, I think racing has to go back to, you know, you do have to, for a lot of people, have to find funding. But I think being a good person, being a professional person, you know, not being arrogant, being confident and humble, and just driving your tits off.
Yeah, just being likable, right?
Yeah,
I think just being likable human being, being able to network. You two are, you know, kind of two guys that I've always known to be like great communicators and talkers, and be humble about it too. It does help you go up a long way. And I think people can sniff out that fakeness.
Yes.
You know, I think the big guys in the big business world, you know, when you're really talking to these guys, they know if you're that person or not.
Right.
You know,
I would hope.
My favorite thing is I have a few partners of mine, you know, I'm very fortunate to be with. They, you know, they support me financially still. And now that I'm getting paid to drive, that's really nice because I don't have to pay the house bills and everything else. We have such a good personal relationship. Even with my helmet sponsor, like Schubert, I mean, they come to the races, we have lunch, we discuss our families and other things. And it doesn't always just have to be business, because the best thing about having a personal relationship with the people that you're working with is, you know, even when you're negotiating a deal in the future, you can lean a little bit on them and push maybe a bit past, you know, what's okay. For example, someone says they're going to give you 50,000 and you say you need more than that. It's okay for you to say, hey, in reality, I need 90. And maybe they'll say, no, that's not. But with a lot of people, when you just deal with them on a professional level, they'll just shut you out and be like, you asked for too much. Get out.
Yeah, this doesn't make business sense for us.
Now, when you have a personal relationship, maybe you can say, you know, you can sit down with them and be like, hey, look, this is what I really need. And maybe they'll listen to you and say yes, or maybe they go, look, I can't give you 90, but I'll give you 70.
Right.
You just made an extra amount.
20. You just made an extra 20.
Because you're a likable person that they say, you know what, he's not only a good brand ambassador, but he's a good person and he deserves that. With Schubert, like last year, man, they give me a helmet, this one right here, after I won the world championship, to be used one time. You know, it was a world champion's helmet with the name of every mechanic in the team, the engineers, the team managers, the drivers. And they did this for me because it was something special, and we had a great personal relationship. And what it was something for us to just be like thankful. And it was just, they were friends. I asked them.
They're not doing that for everyone.
It wasn't for marketing. It wasn't for, they was just like, hey guys, look, you guys are great friends. Do you understand my situation? So I think being a likable person is so important.
And like in being likable, I think honesty, like you touched on, honesty is the best policy. You come across those people that are like, all right, I'm at the race. I'm putting on my business hat and I'm going to be business. And
I got to wear my slacks. I got to wear my dress shoes.
Tuck in my polo.
Another funny topic. America.
We were talking about this earlier.
Black pants, tucked in polos, you know, perfect straight cut hair.
We talked about this in the previous episode.
Yeah, it comes up. It keeps on coming up.
Be yourself.
Be yourself, man.
You're professional.
Somewhat professional, yeah.
Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, with me, you know, in Europe, one thing that's crazy, it's like, man, okay, don't be a lunatic, or you don't want to stand out as that crazy guy. But at the same time, like, there's no problem with wearing a team T-shirt and not having it tucked in.
Right.
You know,
nice fresh pair of Yeezys, maybe.
Yeah, I tend to bring the full black one, so
Ultra boot, maybe some Ultra
but I do
boots.
bring the Yeezys out sometimes, and I think that's cool. You know, there's just a few things that, you know, we're athletes, but I think we have to be respected and respectful.
Exactly.
But we're not always have to be the perfect businessman. You know, we leave that for the businessman.
Exactly.
And that draws away. I think that that just dilutes the sport.
The sport, but also if you think about as becoming a coming up driver looking for partners, you may lose out on some opportunities that you never knew existed because it doesn't fit their brand.
Yeah.
And you may find some of these opportunities that your brands actually match, and they go, whoa, I didn't know someone like you was involved in this sport. Whoa, we kind of fit, right? And then, like you said, you build this personal relationship because you have common interest. And then all of a sudden you're bringing someone into the sport that maybe you never thought they would be marketing in the sport. And boom, there you go.
Well, I had a funny one, actually, an encounter recently that a driver in America, of course, I don't know why here, but it's kind of worked out because, I came back, had a race in Road Atlanta in the IMSA Championship. Absolutely loved the racing, the championship, the people, had a great time, and I would love to have the chance to come back and drive a little bit here. But a driver came and talked to me and said, "You look so unprofessional. You're wearing this Red Bull T-shirt." And he's like, "You're at the track." And he's like wearing a polo tucked in. And I was like, "How much do they pay you to wear that polo, by the way?" "Yeah, I didn't think so." I'm like, "I'm getting paid to wear this T-shirt. It looks great."
I always
don't bother me.
I was thinking about that the other day, where I was like, one of the biggest things that bugs me, and I think about on the business side, is when you go to a team, right, and you're paying to race for the team, and they're like, "This is your team wear. This is this. This is." It's like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm funding your business, essentially.
I've had some nice...
Right?
Yeah, I picked.
That's an argument.
Excuse me. My logo's going on the truck. It's going on your outfit. It's going. My mechanics are wearing this. And I understand it's difficult for drivers on the come up, right, to kind of have... And you need to approach it in a professional manner, in a respectful manner.
This is where having a relationship helps because you have to fit. Because otherwise it gets nasty pretty quick.
Excuse me. Like, I won't use... We'll make up a fake name. What's we can say? Robertson Motorsports, right?
I was about to say Henderson, so we're pretty close.
Robertson Motorsports, big Robertson over the crest and everything, and you're bringing a sponsor team.
They got a color,
right? You're like, whoa, hold on. I'm funding your business this year. Maybe that's a different way to look at things, and I'm probably an outlier or one of the few people that are willing to say that out loud. But like, I'm funding your business.
Yeah.
You're not a manufacturer. You're not the brand. Like,
and you can all relate to this because it's happened to every single person.
Right.
It's like, no.
You need to be you need to sponsor the team. Your sponsor needs to sponsor the team to have all this. Well, I'm already sponsoring the team. I'm racing for you.
Right.
That's me sponsoring the team.
And all these teams have this mentality of like, he's coming in for a year or two, regardless if he wins, loses, sucks, he's paying and he's going to get out. It's
on to the next one.
On to the next one. But we need to keep the logo. It's like, no, that's not how it's going to work here.
Yeah. Right. And that's more of like a keeping, if you take a step back, you're like, I want to keep my team afloat for 20 years or 10 years or whatever. And then you have to have a car color and a car design. And
it's understandable to have a brand, right?
But it's overstepping. It's overstepping. You literally, the question needs to be asked like, yo, I pretty much have right over to like any like sticker,
right?
Any car design we think of.
I will tell you, I have had an experience in the past in junior formulas, and I can assure you that you've dealt with this too. When a team wants to have the full side pod of the car, for example, when you're a junior.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes.
Most of the time, and the stomach of a suit and the truck and everything else the team wear.
Yeah.
And
it's got to be there.
Yeah, and you happen to find a sponsor, which it's not easy, but I actually I lost a big sponsor because of a certain team. They wouldn't allow me to change the side pod logo because of their team logo, and I said, "Are you guys serious?" I said, "How do you expect me to pay for this?"
Right.
And I was already signed with the team because at the time everything was okay. We got to the first race,
exactly.
They took the logo off, and it was a big problem. And sometimes I just don't understand the way motorsports works, So it's very hard, and this is why everything again goes back to being a likable person with good communication and relationships. A lot of times with these teams, if you can have a good relationship with them and they can understand your situation a little bit better,
exactly,
they can go back to you leaning on them a bit and saying, "Look, unfortunately, I cannot afford this without this logo, without this backer." A lot of times, it's not about the marketing. It's not about this company is going to be seen by millions of people, but if they want to put their name on your car because they like you and they want to see you be successful. Yeah. The team has to understand that that's the only way that you're going to drive.
Yeah, and it's a 5-year plan. Maybe like not that year they get their return, but like 5 years down the line, they can see that and they invested in it. So of course. And I wanted to talk about too, like the domino effect of, we're talking about professional, and like you're tucked in with the polo and you got the stuff and you put on your marketing hat.
To be fair, I think looks cool at certain times. I think it's nice when I go into a business meeting. I still like to look clean cut, but every day.
The straight, and especially though the persona with it, like when you come across that almost the fakeness, and like it's very canned answers for everything at the track. Unfortunately, that is all the reporters get, is like canned answers and all this stuff, and like all the media that you see from it is just kind of like bullshit in a way from like different drivers that are like, clearly they wouldn't like say honestly what happened, like the truth. And then that just everyone gets muddied up in this kind of like, oh, let me just gloss over it in media terms.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think over time you learn a balance of things. You know, there's things like when you're getting paid by a manufacturer. So that's a good thing about junior formulas. You have to learn not to be a professional, because when you're getting paid by a manufacturer, you also can't, disgrace the brand.
So, you can't blast them.
The engine was a piece of crap. It blew up, and it's all their fault, because you know what? They are using this as a marketing tool. Whether it works or not, they're using this as a marketing tool to fund the program, to sell cars.
Right.
So you can't say that their car is a piece of crap, right? So you have to have a balance. But like when you said, with the look at the persona, I mean, I've been enjoying it over the last year or two. One thing I noticed, and it's bad, I should really work on it. Every single time I get out of the car, I'm like, comb the hair, make sure it looks good. I literally have a strategy of like,
you and TJ.
Morning, I'm not like...
in the morning, I wake up, put my pomade on, get my hair done. And I don't put a hat on for the first hour.
No, you can't do that.
No, and then I put the hat on because I was sponsored. I have to wear the hat. But for the sole reason that it lets the gel set, so when I get out of the car, I can push my hair to the side, and it goes there. And I have my highlights and my Brazilian blow up. And
I love the honesty.
There's honesty. I haven't even verbalized.
I'm straight, and if you're gay, no problem with that either. But I mean,
you want to look good.
The chicks like it. I like it, and I need to make sure that the Instagram photos look good. So
right? No, you can't.
I mean, your Instagram account's on fire.
Yeah, it's fire. Even when it goes down, it's just easy when you.
And you can't just look disheveled and stuff. It's bad for sponsors.
That's my personality, it has to shine a little bit.
No, I get shit for it too when I'm like doing my hair and like
they call me Hollywood. In the French, this is Monsieur Hollywood. Yeah, you wish you were Hollywood like me.
Yeah, but like TJ, he actually used to be a real model, so I mean, he can't live down that. That persona.
It's hard.
It's hard.
You go back to racing,
but we don't need to talk about that anymore. Just race car driver. Yeah, guys, just search TJ Fisher modeling on Google.
You cannot do that.
Yeah, it's funny for me. I mean, even like on the social media stuff, this is another part that teams try to control drivers on what they're posting.
Yeah.
And tell me one thing. Who is the one driver that is the most famous driver in the world is Lewis Hamilton? What's he known for? Not giving a shit.
Social media.
On Instagram. He
Ricardo
has become
as well.
An A-class influencer.
Ricardo.
A goofball. I'm not saying you have to be a comedian, but be yourself, right? People...
And don't be afraid.
Yeah,
as long as you're not doing stuff that's derogatory.
I'm not telling you to say,
and insensitive.
Do drugs and be naked. No, but people follow you, right? Okay, your posts, I think, should be relevant to what you do in life. But for example, your stories, which we all know about, people are following that to see what you're like behind the scenes in your daily life. Yeah. So if you can be a goofball and share what's going on, and I'm riding the bike in my pajamas to coffee, like
boom.
You're cool. It's cool though. You're a race car driver.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
I might get all the time. I haven't raced a car since maybe 2012. It's been a long time. And I still get people that are like, oh, whoa, like you used to race? I'm like, yeah, used to. And they still think it's cool. Right. Imagine if you're actually doing it.
Yeah, like we're here to share our life, I mean, unfortunately, for better or for worse, because like me, like last week I took a social media break, but that's part of our life. That's part of the sponsorship package.
Right.
What people are seeing, your persona, because that's the way the world we live in today.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they try to filter it a little bit too much. But one thing that I have seen over the last 2 years is in the racing scene, like with my with my works team that I drive for, they've slowly given me more freedom because they've realized that's my persona and I'm going to stick to it. You know, I'm very honest about it, but that's me. And that's a hard line. Like, sorry, guys, I'm going to be professional. I'm always going to do media events. I'm never going to disgrace you guys, but let me be me.
Yeah. I've struggled with IG stories a little bit just because like I've tried to like take myself away from my phone whenever I can.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, when they came out with IG stories, it was like, that's something I got to do.
Hey, man, you guys don't have a wife?
Well, I was about to say, this is another topic.
I am on, like, probation from my phone.
Yeah, I'm sure you
Just
are.
wait.
I'm in a different situation where my girlfriend, yes, I'm calling you out right now, and I'm going to make you watch this later just so you can see this. She likes to be on Instagram a lot, even though she says I'm the one addicted, right?
Yeah.
That's women. No offense. I'm not being sexist, but that's true. It's true.
I
I
get
mean,
your
no
point, too.
offense. It's okay because you know what? You follow all these fashion bloggers. You got to see what's the next style, even when it comes to fanny packs and horrible shoes and all that good stuff. But
fanny packs.
the problem here is I can't tell her to use her phone less if I'm using my phone the whole time too.
Right.
So that's why I took a social media break, for example. Like, it's a team effort. I have to be a good example, but at the same time, we are athletes and we need to share people our lives. So you have to find a balance between. I know we're way off topic here.
That's normal for our podcast.
Yeah,
so we go
topic.
Maybe
way
off
off
mine too.
Yeah, right.
But it's just about finding a balance in life, about being able to share your profession and your life and building your brand and also being able to live a little bit.
Yeah, and finding a balance. I've gone back to that so many times. Like, man, like I dive into something a lot and then finding the balance of like, okay, my friends, man,
right. There's fitness training, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, here's a funny part. We're all like, you get to this level. We're athletes. Yes, we are. We have to train like madmen.
Right.
No, you don't. You do have to train because you have to be fit in the car. So don't get me wrong. Like, don't say you don't have to train.
There's a level of fitness.
You don't need to be a triathlete. Let's be honest.
You don't have to be an Ironman, which I've done, and it was stupid, but I wanted to do it because Tony Kanaan did it, and everyone did it.
Everyone's doing it.
It was so cool. It's so cool, guys. It was dope,
So you don't have to do that.
No, but yeah, there's a happy balance. Like, I just got back from a trip. I had 2 days at home. What do? If you ride 5 hours a day, you're going to get sick, and then you're going to be screwed the whole race week. You're going to be sore. There's a happy balance. If you can get in the gym and, you do your cardio and your lifting and you do, I think 10 hours a week, you're doing fine. Like, you just have to make sure to stay active and eat healthy. And as long as you're fit in the car, you're fine. The rest is just for personal gain. So for me, like, there was a time in Formula 3 I wanted to be the best, and I needed to ride a bike 5 hours a day. And
I remember all your posts.
And I was down to, Formula 1 weight. I was down to a good old 130 pounds and thinking it was what I needed. And
is that Formula 1 weight?
You need to be around 67 kilo with clothes on, with kit. So you're down to under 140.
Sign me out.
Yeah.
Dude, long ago. Not possible.
I'm at a solid 144 now, which is still pretty light.
Yeah.
And because in Europe, the racing, they're a little bit more uptight about it. And what's the funny thing? The Japanese are even lighter. They're into like the 120s and 130s.
Dude, I saw Ocon at Le Mans a couple weeks ago.
He's a stick.
Dude, the kid is like 6'1", 6'2", and is a stick.
Yeah, Kvyat was the same.
Stick, dude. It's crazy.
Brandon Hartley, he weighs 144 pounds at 6'1".
What?
Yeah.
Dude, it's crazy. The kid, like, we're talking like, he had to have been wearing like skinny jeans and they were baggy on him.
That's the reason for power steering.
Right. But you have to have it.
Yeah, it's
not IndyCar.
Not IndyCar. That's, you can be, I guess, my weight.
That's what the gym lead.
I'm like overweight though.
No, your weight's
in racing.
Fine. The problem is that there's also some drivers that decide that they don't need to be athletes at all, and they're 200 pounds, and that I don't think that's fair either. Because you know what, if people are spending millions of dollars to give you, I think you should at least be giving it your best.
Yeah, of course. It's literally I'm 6'2". I can't get rid of my height.
All this talk of fitness and everything is just making me hungry. And I know you have to fly off to China tomorrow, bright and early. So why don't we
wrap it up
here?
We're going way off topic. I'm sorry, guys.
we got to get some dinner in us, and you have to get off to China tomorrow.
So I can prepare for Asia. I just got back.
There you go.
To end this thing, so what weight do I have to be if I want to be like a prototype driver? Anyone.
How much do you weigh, first of all?
I weigh 180 with
Oh my god!
And look how fatty! And look how skinny he is.
You are a stick, and you.
Yeah, I mean with kit,
35 pounds heavier than.
It's 170. Like
I weigh 152 with kit.
152.
Yeah, 152.
So but you don't have the light. Schuberth. You don't have the suit and the
doesn't
shoes.
matter.
I wish we had a pair of the shoes.
2 pounds?
If I put the full lightweight kit on.
Yeah.
Am I cutting 2 pounds with that?
Yeah,
not 30.
No, but you don't have to be exactly that weight. I think in the prototypes, it's quite good, especially in America. It's a bit different with the big V8 Cadillacs and balancing the weights and everything. But it's just more about being at a healthy, lean weight. I mean, there's nothing you can do if you're at 10% body fat. You can be less, but I think it's also exaggerated. I've gotten to that point, and it's stupid.
It's over.
It's overdone.
You have no life if you're doing that. If you're not happy, also it's not good. But just be lean, healthy. You know, if you can only get to 175, 180, that's what you got, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're going, to Europe and you're trying to be a Formula car driver, you got to get under 160.
Yeah,
but that's not the case.
I mean, I was over in Renault and Pro Mazda,
and Formula 3 is worse than Renault. So
yeah, that's what I heard.
But I think
it's like steer away from that.
Okay, tomorrow TJ starts a new diet.
At one point, I was at 155 and I was overweight in F3.
That's crazy.
That was crazy. I was
scared. I don't know how much you give up if you're 20 pounds.
You're giving up.
Is it a tenth of 10 pounds?
Well, it's usually a 10 to 10 kilo, they say.
But, sounds about right.
But
a little bit more.
Formula 3, a tenth can make a big difference. So,
yeah.
So
there it is. We're leaving it on the table.
We're leaving it on the table.
One time.
Well, everyone, Cafe Machina, episode 1 in the books.
That was a great one.
Gustavo Menezes. How do people follow you on your crazy Instagram stories?
Follow Gustavo on Instagram, Twitter. To be fair, I don't use Twitter that much anymore.
Follow Gustavo.
We're moving people to Instagram. Twitter, that's
follow me on Instagram.
Gone.
I follow Gustavo. I don't use Snapchat. Sorry, guys, but we got stories on Instagram. Find me on any social network. Gustavo Menezes. Follow Gustavo. Love to share you the behind the scenes look, and hopefully I can be back for another podcast in the future. This was fun.
We know. You're local boy. You're in the crew now, so we'll definitely, when you're in town at least. I know we talked earlier, you don't really have much of an off season, but this year, but we'll definitely get you back on the podcast. And the podcasts are still brought to you by the same people, Minus 273 Gloves. And then who else is podcast?
We got On It. That's ONNIT.com, supplement company. I used Alpha Brain for this podcast. I don't think you two did because I didn't give it to you. But the stuff is great. Yeah, I didn't share it.
I had a double espresso before it came in.
Double espresso. And then Molecule as well. Molecule cleaners. So they will, if you have Minus 273 gloves.
Actually, one of the best ways to clean your gloves.
Yeah, the best way. Check them out.
Oh, I had this kind of funny technique. I didn't really use any cleaning spray. I just hit up this guy named Chris and asked him for new pairs every time they get
That also works. All right, guys. Check back next week. We'll have episode 2. Check all our social networks. We'll let you know if we got a special guest or not.
Yeah, more guests, more shows. We're doing it live streaming and iTunes. Check us out. Cafe Machina.